We're back today talking with Lynne Cockrum-Murphy about her new book, Living Hope, Steps to Leaving Suffering Behind. It's really a very pretty cover, by the way. Good job.
Is that you on the cover, Lynne?
No, it is not.
Okay.
It's my my state of mind.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's freedom there. There's, excitement. It's a great cover. So, we've really talked about suffering and traumas and dramas, but now let's get to some of the things that people can do, because that was one of the purposes, of course, in your writing this book. How can others change their life experience of suffering to realize it is an illusion, or to realize it as an illusion?
Okay. I think seeking a spiritual practice that really matches with who you are is key. That spiritual practices take us out of the daily experiences and the things that we're told, and gives us the chance at a different reality, maybe a more truthful reality. So seeking and then finding your own spiritual path. For me, that was rejecting what my family offered, because they suggested go to church. So they took me to a bunch of churches. They didn't go to church themselves. Actually, they went to the bar instead of the church. So
the bar of the church.
Yeah, that other holy place that they hung out.
That's one way to deal with it.
Yeah, so they said, do this, but then they did that. So I knew there was something wrong with that picture. Also, I didn't see their religious belief bringing them any happiness. Otherwise, they wouldn't be going to the bar daily. So I really questioned, and I think that's another tool, is question what you're told, question what you've been taught, and see if it still fits for you. Because as an adult, it may be irrational to stay with that. So that caused me to study Buddhism. I lived with the Buddhists in a Buddhist chapter house for a while, and that was, that influenced me. And then I moved into, I finished college after that, and then moved into a metaphysical Christian commune in Oregon. And
you've been around.
Yeah, it's been an interesting life.
Yeah.
So there, and they were partly charismatic, which is hard to believe anybody could be charismatic and metaphysical, but we were.
Yeah.
So, allowing the things that they taught to sink in. And I call that in the book being malleable. Mm-hmm. It means being willing and open to change. So seeking, questioning, finding your own unique spiritual path. So for me, it was chanting for a long time. But then I switched and it became meditation. Today it's meditation and prayer. And I love reading any good book on the spiritual path. That's one of the reasons I wrote the next book that I hope to have out this summer. It's called The Mystery of My Unfolding Self. Mm-hmm. And it's about the spiritual path that, we can study Buddha, we can study Jesus, we can study Yogananda, someone who's more recent. And yet, who's the average American who has a spiritual path that I might learn something from? And so I thought, maybe that would be a good book to write, is the way it is for another average person. Maybe that would be valuable for someone to read. I think a couple other tools that really helped me was study and research. In Theta Healing, Vianna Stibble, who created that, talks about all the different laws that there are besides the law of cause and effect, or we know like the law of gravity, the law of magnetism. She talks about all of those and understanding things like that that are the foundation of our world, what things you can change and what things you can't. I think that's helpful. So, whatever studies, interests you as an individual. Mm-hmm. I think considering love, what is unconditional love, how much love you had, how much you do have, and are you open to receive love? Because for me, that was a transition. I never thought I had enough. I think that was one of the teachings I got in this lifetime is humans don't necessarily have everything you need. So go to that greater source and you'll get what you need there. And that really worked for me. The last couple ones I'd want to mention is the idea of surrender. That we, sometimes we fight, and push for what we want. And sometimes the answer is to let go. And that's part of that being malleable. Let the universe nudge you in a positive way and move with that. So surrender. All those things are in the book. In fact, at the back of the book, there's a checklist of little things to try. And it encourages people, particularly people who might be depressed, try one thing. We don't have to take on the world. Try one thing, and you can say, today, I did something. I moved myself forward.
Oh,
That's
there
great.
it is. I totally missed the checklist, but there it is. Take action. Read, pray, go within.
Read this
Expect
chapter.
A miracle. I like that. Expect a
There's
miracle.
also a book list relevant to what I talk about in this book. There's recommended film list also. Films that kind of open your mind and help you see it maybe a little differently.
Oh, yeah.
That's
Ghost.
awesome.
Lucy. I loved that movie. Lucy. Interstellar. Oh, God. Matrix. And What Dreams May Come. Which is a fascinating movie.
Those are good.
Yeah.
So I have a question for you, Lynn. How do you think your experience with all that has happened to you so far in your life can help other people?
I don't think I'm the only one that's had a really rough start to life. I did some research on PTSD. There are, 7.8% of the population is identified with PTSD, and that's about 8 million people. And then we know the numbers of people with depression and on medication is very high. It's a huge problem in our country. So
what do you think the reason for that is?
I think PTSD, because there's everything from car accidents to family dysfunction and abuse. And then there are people I was reading a book recently about a family who escaped out of Syria and what they experienced. Holy cow. So ask me that question again.
You were talking about PTSD, but you were also talking about depression. And my question to you was, what do you think the cause of such great numbers of Americans having depression is?
There's something with depression, thanks for repeating that is about being hurt, being angry, and shutting it down and not knowing how to deal with it. And that causes the depression. Sometimes what people have experienced is so great that they don't know how to process it, and it hurts to even look at it. And I think it's that. And for some people, they'll tell you that their life was great. But I have a relative that I know, when I talk with her, I find that her relationship with her mother was very bitter, and her mother was very hurtful to her, and that she's never resolved that. So she has a reason for her depression. She's not getting what she wants out of life, and she's elderly now. So yeah, it's stuff that needs to be processed. I really believe in therapists, partly because I'm a licensed substance abuse counselor, but I believe therapists make a wonderful difference. Or there are tools like EMDR, which is really good for PTSD, for trauma survivors.
What is the EMDR?
It's an eye movement to trigger the hippocampus and the thalamus to release. It's for somatic body work, which is a type of therapy that's much more effective for trauma than cognitive behavioral. You can't talk your way out of stuff that's embedded in the hippocampus. I'm trying to remember EM. It's a rapid eye movement desensitization method. So if you look at EMDR, you'll see it.
Google it.
Okay.
Google it, Janet.
I'll Google it because Google's my best friend. But I think it's really interesting in this whole thing, Lynn, because you're advocating for people to take up a spiritual path, right? To move forward in whichever way. I did not hear you once say take drugs, right? Or, go go to the nearest pharmacy and get, something. And I think there's something really valuable and beautiful in that we also have the power to be able to move forward in our lives. And, in Roger's question, I think sometimes depression and traumas, they create a situation where we feel that we have no control, right? Where things can happen to me that I don't know why that happened to me. And if that happened to me once, what's going to stop it from happening again? That kind of thing. So how would you speak to that for people who might feel like their life and these things that happen to them are not in their control? Maybe, are they in their control?
I think some is and some isn't. That when we have karma, we are generally not aware of it, because if I knew that the house was going to burn down, I'd move out, right? I'd go stay at my girlfriend's house. I'd do, whatever I could. So we don't know what's coming. And if there's karma to clean up, Buddhists do teach about things that you could do to release karma. Like chanting, doing good deeds, having a spiritual practice. There's actually quite a few of them. So you could go about it that way too. But then I think on the other hand, there's something about strengthening yourself, finding your inner strength, so that no matter what happens, you're going to be okay. Believing that the universe has your back, which it took me a while to get to that state, because I thought, bad things happen.
I'm a victim.
Yeah, right.
I mean, you could write that on your forehead, in your life, really, because of all the things that happened.
I think as a teenager, I walked around with a big V on my forehead.
Oh, yes. You did, the scarlet letter. It's not what we thought it was.
Big V.
Yeah.
But through all the work that I've done, through therapy and journaling and autobiography and seeking and meditating and chanting and being open, it's changed. And now I feel like the only thing that really concerns me is, now that my husband and I are both 60 and over, is the loss of him. And the truth is that would just be a huge transition for me. But I don't think that there's anything that can rock my boat like it did when I was little. Well, because I'm an adult. I have experience and I have a different perspective today. And I know where to go to get that peace that no one can take from me.
And it's not at the bar.
It's not at the bar. And it's not at the pharmacy for me. Although I do not hold against anyone who needs medication to get through some of the stages.
Sure.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
But sometimes I think, in our society, the way it is that, we're sort of preconditioned to go to a doctor, and a doctor is preconditioned then to throw things at your symptoms, which are usually pills.
Yeah.
And yet there are so many other ways that we can handle this. And it even goes to some of the mental health issues that are out there, people are experiencing, they don't even go for help, right? They don't know where to go for help or how to help themselves.
One of the things they talk about in the recovery programs is ask for the willingness to be willing. If you're at that point that you're not going to ask anybody for anything, ask Creator for the willingness to be willing so that you can take a step.
Yeah.
My husband works with people who have serious mental illness, and often they are in their own way because they don't want to take their medication or they don't want to comply, and so their situation gets worse. Boy, it doesn't have to be that way for us. Just any little step in the right direction, you can pat yourself on the back.
That's great.
Absolutely.
Do we need to take another break, Roger?
Yes, it's time for a break.
Time for a break.
So when we come back, we're going to wrap things up and get some more information about Lynne. So we'll be right back.